Welcome, Christine. A real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I wanted to start with just a kind of both general and specific question about your beginning as a dancer. You know, you started, I mean, your trajectory seems to have been, as it is with children, with ballet, and then you went into contemporary dance, and then finally with First Nations dance. Was there more involved than just personal preference?
Because I always, I connect to myself as a storyteller, first and foremost. So along my journey of exploring different disciplines of artistic practice, I have a deep love for classical dance, and it's the connection of the music and the movement that really compelled me and took me to another place. Also, the space, like the studio, has always been like a sacred place for me, and almost a place where I could take myself in like a, I'm thinking of another word, but euphoric or kind of utopia, away from this present world. So I was able to make a connection to spirit immediately. And I think it has a lot to do with when you're following your true path and when you're following your gift, that these kind of experiences start to happen. So I understand that there could be many parallels to that for other people when they're on a journey through finding their true self or their true path in life. So it began quite early for me, that journey, because I think dance, you have to train your well, in this type of dance that I've done, you have to train your body, and so my body is like my instrument, and but classical dance. So I do. I still carry that deep love for classical dance, and it has to do with the discipline. It has to do with the connection of the movement to music, because we always had a live pianist, and. But as I grew older, I started to realize that what the stories that were being told within the art form weren't actually my stories, or I had no connection to what was being, what was being offered in that time, because this would be, 40 years ago, almost now, like 30, because I'm 48 years old. When I started when I was 10, and going through my early years in training, like I knew I didn't want to do Nutcracker. I didn't want to do Swan Lake. And they had often told me as a young girl, like, you always poke out, like you're never going to fit in. And I would also be kind of labeled as, you're like this wild horse that can't be tamed. And that's kind of what my role. Yeah, it is beautiful. That's kind of what my role was in classical ballet. So I knew that these aren't my stories. And although classical dance is a little bit different now than even it was when I was younger, it's quite experimental now. But I had no connection to the stories that were being experienced. So that kind of, and I knew I wanted to, when I seen some other contemporary dance artists, as I grew older, I was like, oh, wow, like you can move like that, or you're allowed to move like that. So very wild and expressive. And that's kind of what drew me to a different form of expression. And then I started my career when I was 18, and I worked with with a contemporary theatrical acrobatic company called the Rossier Dance Theater in Toronto. And although I'm very inspired by the work and the contemporary dance scene, I knew that I felt like a puppet, and I knew that I was still searching for, like, what is my story? Like, who am I? And so that's when I went to Native Theater School, and started to find my connection to my spirit, to ceremony, and to to that type of I call it like a bundle, like your medicine or your ancestral knowledge. Like that's kind of what started to become revealed to me. So like I am of mixed, and I don't like to say I'm of mixed ancestry, but like my mom is Anishinaabe. She's Algonquin and Cree Anishinaabe, and my father's Irish and Italian, which I'm sure you know. But I feel mostly connected to my Anishinaabe side, and maybe that's because it's mostly what I'm made up of, and it's also the land that I live on as well, and also where my devotion and where my work is. That's where my calling is as well. So yeah.
There's something wonderful about the notion that you can tell stories without spoken language, just that the body tells stories, and that when you do that, just, accepting that people will get it.
To me, it's about energy and about moving energy, and it's about being present to have an experience. And it's always like I often don't feel like when I do my work, I put down, to me, it's very ceremonial in the approach that I take to my work. And then it's the experience starts to become revealed to me, and then I become a part of it. But it was always, there's stories from the land. So they've always been there. It's just a matter of me becoming present to be able to reveal the experience like to the world as well. So it's very much connected to energy, spirit. I work a lot in the dream realm, spirit realm, and the present realm, and how for me and my culture, how it's all interconnected together. So
yeah, it's interesting. You've used before, and even other people, not that often, have used the idea that dance can be healing. And to some extent, it's understandable why it could be healing for the dancer, but it's not immediately obvious why it's healing for the spectators or for the community. And there's some assumptions there, which I accept on an intuitive level, but I would love for you to expand on those, how it can be healing for others.
Yeah, well, that actually is, it's quite natural in my experience, actually, because it's because of the release that people have when they're watching me dance, or this is just what's come. It's not every person has this experience, but it's like a release. So, quite often people will cry, and that's the healing aspect to that, is that release or connecting to and when you reflect human nature through art, then there's an immediate connection, and then that's where that healing begins, because we become interconnected. And then it's also, it can't be intellectualized either. It's a feeling and it's emotion, and it's the release, and it's that parallel of experiences and that kinship that comes with that. So yeah.
Many years ago, I was part of a conference in Vancouver on healing in the creative arts, and there was a dancer, First Nations dancer, and she talked to us. She was wearing this very beautiful blanket, salish blanket. It was hard to see exactly from the audience, but I could tell that it was very beautiful. And she told us the story behind it, and it was startling and moving. She said that she came from a community where many years, a few generations before, language, the native language that they were using, was outlawed. So kids couldn't learn it in school. Plus, dancing, a specific kind of dancing was also outlawed. So no potlatch dancing, no power, none of that was outlawed. So as a result, the language started to disappear. It was not a direct line, but at the same time, it started to disappear. She felt she had to do something about this, and she consulted some of the grandmothers who were still alive, and they had some very old blankets, and they could see some of the dances that were kind of recorded, so to speak, on the blankets. So she started to learn how to make blankets with them, and then she started to teach the youth. And they also saw that there were some words in the blankets. So this is the ironic part. They found a white anthropologist from Seattle who was able to help them reconstruct and put together a lexicon. And slowly they recovered that the dialect. I can't remember, I'm sorry, which one, of the Salish. And it just galvanized from a dying community. Suddenly it became a very living community, and youth started to lose some of their problematic behavior and all kinds of other things of that nature. And it, of course, if you just looked at the dance, and it was a beautiful aesthetic adventure, but all this behind it was very moving. Have you had anything like that correspondingly, to do with community building and your work and so forth? Is there anything that you can relate to there?
Yeah. Well, when you're talking, how, to me, it's reminding me of reclaiming, or so I know that in my family, because we speak from our own experiences, that because of the effects of colonization, that we really had to hide our gifts and our knowledge, and so those were hidden, and how those were hidden and how those were found, or it's really in a spirit realm, in a spiritual realm, and so for me, I was able to pick up these this knowledge through dream experiences, and also being present in these places, in these like on the land, and not just like deep in the bush. So right. By going to these places and being present, then I have allowed myself to be able to understand a deeper sense of culture and knowledge. And it's really been my whole life has been working in community and working with youth for over 20 years with First Nations youth, and more specifically in my own community. I've been working in my community for 15 years, running a dance camp and for ages 7 to 12. And the past 4 years, I've established a cultural performing arts program for ages 13 to 22. And it's about the emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental well-being, and passing them on tools so they can as well connect to who they are, who their true selves are, and hopefully they're going to find their own gifts as well within that. And so giving them the tools to be able to have their own journey. So that's another thing. I don't like to put my journey on people, but have them give them the tools to empower them to find their own path and their own journey. And I think it's creating and carving that space, and creating a safe place for people, and really having a positive affirmation is a big part of that as well. And connecting people together, or connecting leadership together, or youth together, and placing them on the land too, and giving them the support to be able to do that. So
So you part of that, now you mentioned land and going back and being in the bush, and you made a decision to live on Bear Island, which I know nothing about, although it sounds like it's really wild and so forth, and wonderful, I guess, if you're prepared for that kind of life. Now, do you have to leave Bear Island to do your work, or do people come to you sometimes on Bear? I don't know anything about Bear Island.
Yeah, so I create the beautiful thing about my life is I create my own reality. So it's up to me to I manifest my world, and I don't wait for people to bring me things. I create them, and then and the connection becomes the extension. And it's also like I didn't sign up for predictable. I've always been chasing a dream, or but and so I live as an artist. I never know what I'm going to do before 3 to 6 to 12 months. Although, I have a plan, and I have ambition, and I have goals, but I don't have security, which is something, but I've never really wanted security. So, I mean, I do have a secure relationship. I have, it's something I've worked at, and my husband's very practical kind of person. So he keeps me very present in this world. And so do my children also. Yeah, so I also I live in my family tribal territory. I live on my First Nation, but this is a reserve, so it doesn't represent it's my community, which I really love, but my traditional tribal family territory, which I think is really important to acknowledge, is in the area, but it's like my mom grew up on our traditional tribal family territory, and it was through we've gone through, my mom went to residential school, and then through the effects of the Canada forming, and the idea of wanting, Native people to assimilate, and because of, it has a lot to do with industry. It has a lot to do with development. And so I actually am, I look to create my own sovereignty and my own peace of mind. I'm going a little bit all over the place, but yeah, I don't, trying to get back to your question, like where I live, because of COVID too, it's actually helped to create more opportunities for me, because I'm in a semi-isolated location but I've actually made a big transition into film. So, which is something I've always been interested in and have been developing prior to COVID. But in the past year, I've created 5 dance films, like short dance films. But it's also too, my whole journey of my life has been about moving home. And so my husband and I are from the same community, from Lake Temagami. And we built our own house. Like we really created our own success. We're both entrepreneurs. And yeah, that's what I like to inspire, is that that's that spirit of entrepreneurship, to empower ourselves to follow our dreams. And that's the way I live. And it's not the way for everybody, but yeah. And my husband's like a bushman, so we go hunting in the fall, and we really live in the cycle of the nature. And yes, and to being home too now is very, I see a huge responsibility on protecting the land and protecting the water, and doing my part to protect our way of living. Our way of living and the health and well-being of our people is directly connected to the health and well-being of the land. So, greed, and I fight the forces of greed and destruction, which have really created an imbalance in the world. And I know there's a lot of people that are waking up, and I'm awake, and that's what I also look to inspire, is awakening of like-minded souls and spirits to create that balance in the world again.
That's a great answer. Thank you. No, that's a great answer, because I was also, just as you were saying this, it occurred to me to ask you, something that simply as the byproduct of who you are, where you come from, you're spiritually related to the land. And of course, even though it was taken away from you, you have a legal right to it, no matter what anyone says. It's there. But people, European-based people, people who are European descendants, come, and they may have been born here, but they don't have the same connection. You can find your connection because of your ancestry, as well as your spiritual work and so forth. But what about people who come from European ancestry? How can they discover a connection to land that's not even theirs, because it was unceded territory quite often. So, what can they do? I mean, maybe ecological work, I don't know, service in that way.
Well, yeah, that big movement of land back. So, not all of us are brainwashed. So I didn't get brainwashed. And I understand how Canada was formed. Canada was formed on the doctrine of discovery, which is based on Christianity and religion. And so it's a very false, the whole structure of this country is actually is built on quite a racist and criminal mindset, that anyone who wasn't Christian was actually not even thought of as human. So that's really the intention of how this whole governing system is formed. And I don't feel like I'm part of it. And I really stand pre-colonial in my assertion and connection. But when what I pass on to people, because some people will ask me, well, how can we be a part of and support what you're doing? And it's looking after, taking up that responsibility as well, to look after the land or look after the water, or, even in your becoming aware of where your water comes from, or where, it's I guess it's awareness and knowing whose land and territory we're on. And I think it's about respect, and it's about that truth and the honesty and the courage and living. It's humbling ourselves to, like, no one person's better than another. Each one of us has a gift to offer, and together we create that whole. So breaking down the hierarchy system by looking in that way of life of balance and of more like that reciprocity, and the truth does need to come before reconciliation. And it's so much about the protection of the land and living more of a balanced life. And how much money does one person need? Like this, just like this hunger of like,
never enough.
I don't understand it. Like I really, I don't, I mean, I understand it, but intellectually, but I don't understand it.
No.
I hope people wake up, and I know there is people waking up. To me, it's about protecting the resources and finding alternative ways of economy is really, using those. There's so many incredible, intelligent, empowering people in the world. So using our innovative ways to shift into a better way of living, and that's more in balance with the land and the earth and the world.
In the days when I taught, I asked people whether anyone had too much money or too much time. No one ever did. That was the place where we started. We talked about what values were and so forth. I want to just double back a little bit. And when you were doing or started doing Aboriginal dance or First Nations dance, forgive me, I believe you started with hoop dancing, and then no, okay.
No, I'm not a hoop dancer.
Okay.
So hoop dancing's so hard.
All right. Well, but there was this. Well, what's the difference? Like at one point, I read that you were studying jingle dancing, right?
Oh yeah, I started off as a fancy shawl dancer.
That's it. Fancy. I'm sorry. Fancy shawl dancer.
And then I put my tobacco down, which is like, so I make an offering to become a jingle dress dancer, which is something actually I'm still working on. But that offering to become a jingle dress dancer kind of transformed into a contemporary expression of a healing dance, which I did, called Maggie and Me. So that's but it was in that journey. It is like in our dances, we dance for for the people that can't dance. And it's also a direct, it's very much a direct channel to spirit. And yeah, so I dance, when I dance, like I dance for community, I dance to help our people. And again, it's a moving energy. There's definitely a parallel to my contemporary style of dance, and but it's representation of community and who you are and where you come from and your family. So yeah.
But it's not, what I guess what I'm getting at is it's not simply an aesthetic decision. Oh, I'm going to do jingle dancing. There's obviously an aesthetic decision, but it's a meaningful, the ceremonial and spiritual meanings embedded in that, right? And so forth. And so that puts it on a whole other level when one is doing that. And I'm assuming that most of the audience is aware of all of that when you're dancing.
Yeah, well, I don't dance, like I don't really like, I have done workshops where I'll put on my regalia, but I mostly dance as a contemporary dance artist, and I use my regalia almost in community traditional powwows. I don't do nothing wrong with competition powwows, but I just don't dance competition powwows. But I have put on my regalia, and I've danced in workshops with youth, and it's what happens is they experience like it's energy, and it's a feeling. So it's more of so it's almost to pass on the spirit of our people, and to kind of it's uplifting, and it's moving, and it's shifting energy and awareness. So,
very interesting. And I don't know why, but I got the sense that you had been influenced by Margie Gillis. Let's just take our shoes, let's just dance expressively with full energy and some of that.
Yes, she was the one that I when I was a teenager and I was in ballet and I saw Margie Gillis dance, and she's the one who I thought, you're allowed to move like that? Like, I had no idea. You're allowed to be wild and crazy. So she very much inspired me to go into contemporary dance. So that's that connection. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, you've also worked, you mentioned before that you'd worked with Robert de Rossier, and he's famous for his use of multimedia, all that experimental stuff, and very kind of surrealistic a choreography. To what extent do you feel that's an influence? Have you taken that into your work, your creation?
Well, he's definitely a mentor of mine and continues to be a mentor of mine. He just he helps me with my he's like a choreographic support for me, and so even on the last piece that I just did, he'll come in and he helps me with my lighting, because I'm a solo dance artist. So he's still a part of my career, actually. So I saw him last week when I was in Toronto, so he still continues to I have a lot of honor and respect for him. But the parallel is we both work in spirit and from a place of spirit. So that's the connection. And we actually can accomplish a lot in a short period of time, just because of, I think it's because he works on himself too. Like, we both work on ourselves. So that's also that's the connection.
Well, the use of dreams is very well known and cataloged in art making of all kinds, but people have different ideas about that. Some people look at it and just, I had a weird dream, I'm going to use it in my painting or dancing or writing or whatnot. And then other people, like yourself, take it in an entirely different way. Sometimes that dream is more than a dream. It's like a vision, a visitation of something, right? And you've talked elsewhere about being visited by thunderbirds that inspired you or taught you how to do certain kinds. That's amazing. It gives me chills when you say that. tell us me a little bit more about
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I could tell you that story. So it actually had to do with being a jingle dress dancer, or wanting to be a jingle dress dancer, and where the jingle dress originates from is Lake of the Woods area. And I had been going to, which is in northwestern Ontario,
that.
and I had been going out there working with the youth in that area. So was spending going 5 trips back and forth, and so it's so interesting. There's something calling me there. So that's when I made the offering. And I was living in Ottawa at the time. I made an offering to become a jingle dress dancer. And that night I went to bed and I was sleeping in my room. And there was these 2 grandmothers that came from the bottom of my bed, and they had wings on their right arm, and they were dancing over me and almost like caressing my spirit with their wings. And as they were doing this, I started to have a vibration. And so it was something I've felt before. So I just told myself, okay, just ease into it. Almost felt like I was going to have an out of body experience or something. And so I just told myself to ease into it. And I went back into the sleep or the dream, and I woke up and I was still in my room, and I was still vibrating. So I went, told myself again to relax and go back to sleep. And I went back to sleep, and I became this really strong, powerful, but it was kind of dark, bird-like. And I flew from one corner of my room to the other corner of the room, back to another corner, but it was too strong, and it was almost too much for me to handle, that I went back into my body. And I woke up and I thought, oh, wow, what an incredible experience. I called a really dear friend of mine that morning and told her about it. And she's from Lake of the Woods area. She's from Rainy River First Nation. And she said, oh, you should Google my great grandmother, Maggie Wilson. So anyway, I Googled her, and she was a dance artist from the mid 1800s. And she wrote a book called Rainy River Lives. And there was an excerpt of her book, and it said that the thunder beings would visit her in her dreams and caress her body with their wings and pass her on knowledge of what to create. And so there was an immediate, connection, like, well, that's exactly what happened to me. So yeah, it's that spirit of, and that's kind of what my, it's like an ongoing theme for me. And so that's how part of how that story was created. But it's medicine that was given to me, and that medicine is about healing. And that's that medicine that I'm able to share, and that people feel when they watch me dance, because it's part of what I was given, and part of what I carry in my life, and what I'm supposed to share. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Love it. Yeah, Maggie Wilson, is that the same Maggie as in Maggie and Me? Or is that another Maggie? Yeah. So tell us about that project.
Yeah, well, that's the same project that, that I used, that. So it is about the spirit realm, dream realm, and the present realm, and how they're all interconnected together. And as I journeyed through learning this piece, I started to have different experiences and guided of what to create. And I have these dreams where I would see, be in places where I wasn't familiar with. I'd go down this pathway, and then I seen this spirit reach down for my hand. And so I reached up for my hand to her hand, and we clasped onto arms, and we were like fighting. So this spirit was trying to pull me into a realm, and I was trying to pull them into my dream realm. So we're fighting, but I was stronger than her, and I pulled her into my realm in this dream I was having. And she was wild. She had looked like she was like kind of panting heavy, and she had chocolate all over her mouth. So to me, this was an excerpt of Maggie. And so every time before I dance Maggie and Me, I always make an offering of chocolate to her spirit.
Wow. I have to be there. Well, just when you're doing that, showing those movements, I could see that as part of your choreography, like
Yeah,
that would be the choreography right there, some of it anyway.
exactly. So that's where all the inspiration come from. I even had an experience where I had these dots I had seen dots on my forehead, like these black dots, and I told a friend of mine about it, and it's actually what some Cree women do, and it's about medicine. Also, a hood I made. I don't have my hoods in my other room, but this traditional ceremonial hood. I received to create it, and my mom made it for me. And yeah, it's a ceremonial hood, which is part of my bundle or part of what.
Right.
But yeah, that was also I was journeyed in the process of the creation of that work to create this hood. So that's again about you talk about the blanket, or it's these gifts, or this revitalization of culture that doesn't there's so many ways. If you ask, you do receive. And you don't always, it always happens, and there's not always that it happens in such interesting ways, like you can't even fathom how it's going to happen. But so yeah, it's I guess coming back to how we just started our conversation, when you're following your true path in life, that all these incredible unforeseen gifts are just waiting to be revealed.
Yeah. So you had, I'm not even sure if it's going on at the moment, but Friday Creations, right? Yeah. And through that became the vehicle for doing dances, working with community and so forth. Is that still ongoing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've been dancing as an artist for 30 years professionally, but I established myself as an entity, a non-for-profit entity, so I can access larger funding sources like Canadian Heritage. And I'm looking at, I'm in the process of a feasibility study for a cultural creation center. And so I just always really just wanted a dance studio. But so in the process of this feasibility study, I'm starting to see how I'm activating actual cultural creations, and that it's actually not going to be a big building, but I'm going to build a dance studio that can transform into a theater. I'm looking at developing a camp so people can do artist residencies, and then they can almost in a sense choose their own adventure. So we could take them on a day trip or to an outpost camp, and then they create art in this space of so yeah, it's like a camp idea, like and almost like the old, like I have a family of guides, like where people would go hunting or fishing, but it's like a cultural guide, or but creating that connection to land, but something that's not going to be I can't think of the word right now. I'm thinking distorted, extract. Like I don't want to expose our land. I really want to keep protecting our land, but bring people to have a deeper sense of responsibility and honor for that lifestyle and for the land, but not expose it. That's the word I'm looking for. Not to expose. So that's what Friday Creations is. It's going to fulfill, or that dream. You get a lot more. I have someone working with me now. I have also like a technical support worker, so he's film and involved in film and editing. So he helps me. I'm doing podcasts, film. I do annual dance work with the youth. I do workshops. I create my own choreography, and I just created a new work that I had just performed in Toronto last week. And now I'm packaging up the piece. It's called Fire, Water, Thunderbird Rising. And there's a comedy section in there. And
I'm getting tired just listening to you.
Oh yeah.
But it's also very inspiring. I'm just joking. It's just very inspiring. But I want to talk a little bit about the movies, the films that, and you working with or you were working with Barbara Willis-Sweet, and yeah, who's a well-known film director and so forth, and creating dance films. I don't know if
Oh yeah, I
director or
don't.
direct-
Yeah, I don't. I never worked with Barbara actually.
Okay.
No, I've never worked with
All
her.
right. So I got
Um,
misinformed about that. Sorry. But
but
anyway, I do know you were involved with dance films.
yeah,
And that's an exciting venture, doing something, because it's a way that people can see your work who cannot
yeah,
come to where you are. They can't see it in
yeah.
person, but they can
So
still see it.
yeah, I'll send you some links, which
Love
to
it.
some of my work. So on Vimeo, and which will help maybe shape also the story. So I did a dance film last a year ago now, and it was called Firewater Thunderbird Rising, and now I transformed it into a stage production, which I just performed. And actually, Barbara was there at the show because she
Okay.
does work with Citadel.
Right.
There's a connection in there. It was interesting that you bring her name up, but I've never met her, but she did. She came to the show, which is nice. And we have a mutual connections and support system.
But you know,
But yeah,
she's
so
seen in your
now,
company, that's it, you know her. That's the the way it works.
yeah,
The
yeah,
culture
yeah, for
business.
sure. Yeah,
But
but I love
yeah.
to share with you because I find it's also a way for people to the word was exploit, not expose. It was exploit. I don't want to exploit our land, but through film, I'm able to take people to these places that they wouldn't necessarily be able to go.
Right.
And to me, it's also awakening ancestors and spirit, and just, yeah, that deeper connection to spirit and self. Yeah. So I love filmmaking. I like to be very spontaneous with it as well. So I don't necessarily, wait to hire a film crew and okay, we're going to film on these certain days. I've done those kinds of projects, but now I have my own cameras and getting my own equipment. So I can be like, oh, like I could be like, it's beautiful right now. Let's go and do something in this moment. So yeah, that's why I like to be spontaneous now and in my work. And I'm starting to get a lot more opportunities to do dance and film. So yeah, it's been a great way for me to develop my craft.
Your parents live on Bear Island too, right? So you
yeah, they just moved here.
Yeah. So it's all, everyone's there. You're
Everyone's
kind of
here.
direct ancestors and also ancestors that have passed on. So they're all there.
Yes. Yes. That's so nice. So my mom is my best friend, and I'm so glad to spend this time with her in this part of her life. I think it's just so important to be close and to have fun and to and to stay strongly connected. So yeah, my boys and my dad helped build, and my husband, we built our own house, and
wonderful.
so their legacy is inside our home. It's just wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
COVID has sort of disrupted the entire arts community, everything from just the simple ability to present work to others to getting funding, are you finding creative ways of getting around all that kind of problem?
Yeah, well, it's doing more, like I'm still quite, like I had an opportunity actually to go out west to perform in February, but there was something I felt hesitant about going out there just because of the state of the world right now, and also the state of the West Coast. Like there's so much going on out there, from Wet'suwet'en to the pipeline to the flooding to the there's more there's just the Omicron. There's just more stuff happening. Not that I want to live in fear, but I really don't want to. I just want to kind of stay in my own neck of the woods, go places right now. I feel I actually glad I had to travel so much as an artist. Like I was always leaving home, and now I get to stay closer to home, and I get to choose to stay closer to home and to do work that we could do. Actually found because I'm in a semi-isolated location, like I can deliver workshops online with youth. There's actually, so it's actually opened my world a little bit more than closed it off. I'm not leaving home as much, and there's more of a creative time. But I've been able to, like, I've done 3 shows this year and I felt safe in them. I did Dream in High Park in Toronto, and that was a great experience, and it was outdoors. And I did another show, like a hybrid show in Oakville, where they were live streaming my performance on stage. And then I've done outdoor shows this year. So yeah, it's just kind of, the venues have shifted. I've always actually danced outside. So it's not really, yeah, it's pretty natural. At my heart goes, it's nothing to celebrate, the suffering that is happening now, but it's pulled me to stay closer to home and just to simplify things. And yeah, so that's and I guess we have to be a bit more creative and not spend as much money. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope your work blossoms, and it's already blossoming, but I hope it blossoms even further.
Thank
so
you so
thank
much.
you very much, Christine.